Hey guys, so in this second video, we're talking about how we use those different types of angles and their relationships to actually find all of the angles in a problem, okay? So the first thing I want you to do is copy down this example down here. We're gonna use this example for all three of these theorems, all right? So I'm gonna give you a second, copy this down, and then we'll get started on the theorems. All right, if you need more time, by all means, pause the video. So we have three theorems when it comes to pictures like this, okay? So this, do we agree, is two parallel lines. Let me mark them. C and B are parallel, so I'm just going to jot that down. Not CB. C is parallel to B, okay? And then A is the intersecting line that goes through them. So A equals the transversal. You do not have to write that down. I'm just showing you how this picture looks a little different than the ones we did up there because my parallel lines are the vertical ones now, and that's totally fine. That's why I did a different picture so you can see it different ways, okay? So C is parallel to B and A is a transversal. This is your alternate interior angles theorem. So if a transversal intersects two parallel lines, then alternate interior, I'm abbreviating, what the heck is that? Then alternate interior angles are congruent, and this is our symbol for congruent right here. Okay, so what this means is they are equal, but when we're talking about angles, we don't say they're equal because they're not numbers. So you do a squiggle, which means approximate, but they're approximately equal because we're talking about a measure, okay? So if a transversal intersects two parallel lines, then alternate interior angles are congruent. So let's look at our example. And for the sake of this example, I am going to tell you guys that angle 1, Daisy, shh, hush. I'm trying not to laugh because it's funny because she's pissed off. Angle 1 is 120 degrees, okay? Well, this theorem says alternate interior angles should be congruent. So let's check this. 120 is not an interior angle, and if you're going, huh? Then you need to go back and look at your notes because you didn't understand those, okay? Interior angles are inside of the parallel lines. So I'm talking about, for this one, I'm talking about 2, 3, 6, and 7. Those are my interior angles, okay? Now, if angle 1 is 120, we should know that angle 2 is 60. And if you're saying, whoa, wait a minute, why is 2 60? Look at this. Don't the two of those make a straight line together? Which means they should add to 180. So 180 minus 120 that we know, that means there's 60 left over, right? So measure of angle 2 equals 60 degrees. Okay. This is saying that alternate interior angles are congruent. If you guys know this one is 60, find the inside opposite. This is top left, so we need the bottom right angle inside of the parallel lines. Well, the bottom right is 7. This one should also be 60. Okay, so that also equals the measure of angle 7 because 2 and 7 are alternate interior angles. Are we okay there? We should be. Okay, we'll come back to alternate. Actually, we don't need to come back. Let's keep going. I want y'all to check this out. 3 and 7 touch and make a straight line, right? I'll tilt it so you can see. They make a straight line together, which means they should add to 180, right? So if these should add to 180 and 7 is 60, then 3 should be 120, right? Okay, so we just found out measure of angle 3 should equal 120, which means this is in the top right inside of the parallel lines. So if we go to the bottom left, that's the alternate interior. This one should also be 120. So measure of angle 6 should also equal 120 degrees. All right, that works if the two lines are marked parallel, or if they tell you they are parallel, then that will always be the case. That's the cool thing about geometry. It's a bunch of rules, and they work all the time as long as like the lines are parallel, or as long as they tell you certain things. Okay? All right, I want to skip corresponding for a second, and I want to go to alternate exterior. So let's take a look at these. So this is the same rule if a transversal intersects two parallel lines, then alternate exterior angles are congruent, which means they're equal. Okay? So same thing, alternate exterior, the outside ones are also going to be equal. So let's take a look at it. If this measure of angle 1 is 120, do you see how that is outside of my two parallel lines? It's out here, so it's outside of the parallel lines. And this one's in the top left. So if I stay outside and go to the bottom right, this opposite one should also be 120. So measure of angle 1 should equal the measure of angle 8, which they both should be 120. And we know that because these two lines are parallel and they are alternate exterior. They will always be the same if these are parallel. Okay? Well, let's take a look at, let's do angle 4. There's less going on over here. It doesn't matter where you start. That's the good thing about these. You can start wherever you want. So angle 4, if you guys look at this, 4 and 8 make a straight line. So if 8 is 120, straight line should equal 180 degrees. So 180 minus 120 gives me 60. So if 4 is 60, we're outside of the parallel lines. This is the top right. I need to go to the bottom left. That should also be 60 degrees. It should balance out, okay? So measure of angle 4 should equal the measure of angle 5, which should equal 60 degrees because they are alternate exterior. All right, so now we're going to use our corresponding angles to check. So the only reason I'm color coding is for you guys at home so y'all can try to see better what I'm doing since we're away from each other, okay? So corresponding angles, same rule. If a transversal intersects two parallel lines, then corresponding angles, you can probably guess the last part, are congruent, which means they're equal, okay? But notice it says if a transversal intersects two parallel lines. So again, you have to have parallel lines. But let's use this to check. So corresponding angles should be congruent. 120 is in the top left of this T. Let me try to make this a T for y'all. Here's my first T, or my first intersection, and here's my second intersection, right, for my two parallel lines. Angle 1 is in the top left. So come to your second intersection, look in the top left, those should be equal. Are they? So look at this. Measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 3, which is 120, and that's because they're corresponding, so that does check off. All right, let's check another one. 5 is in the bottom left, so go to your other intersection, your second one, look in the bottom left, and 7, are those two equal? Yes, because they're both in the bottom left. This is how you can check yourself to know you did it right. So measure of angle 5 equals the measure of angle 7, and they are both 60. That works out. All right, let's check top right. 60, 60, 2 and 4, that looks good for both intersections. So measure of angle 2 equals measure of angle 4, which equals 60. And last but not least, bottom right, 6 is 120 degrees and angle 8 is 120 degrees. So that also looks great. 120 degrees, check. All right, so those are your 3 major theorems. There's actually 2 more that I need to write down here, okay? So I do need you to look at this with me. We are going to jot these 2 down. So theorem 4 follows the same rules, so I'm not going to write down the same rules. You have to have parallel lines, okay? So I'm underlining that so you know it's the same here. Theorem 4 is that vertical angles are congruent. Okay, and then theorem 5, I'm running out of room. I'm trying to give y'all all this good info. Theorem 5 is that same side interior. So make sure you heard me say that same side interior angles are supplementary, which means they will add to 180. So I do want to show you these 2 really quick as well, okay? So vertical angles are congruent. Check this out. I am going to use my highlighter here. Angle 1, when it looks in the mirror, it sees angle 6. That's what's directly across from it, right? Those are both 120. Okay. Angle, let's just do, I don't know. We'll do angle 4. Angle 4, when he looks in the mirror, he sees angle 7. He should see the same thing. It's his reflection, okay? And they do equal. They're across from each other. So vertical angles are congruent when the 2 lines are parallel. And then same side interior. I worked this out perfectly. Grab a different highlighter. Look at these 2 right here. They are inside the parallel lines, and they're on the same side of that intersection, right? Well, if you add those 2 up, don't you get 180? 60 plus 120 is 180, so those are supplementary, okay? So you do have an example. This should help you with Tuesday's homework. You don't have any homework tonight. It's just to make sure you're good with this. Get on and ask me questions if you need to. But this will help you with Tuesday's homework. And then for Wednesdays, there will be a different video for you to watch with examples, all right? Find me if you need me. You know how to do that. Zoom, Google Voice, email. Bye, y'all.